Today, we're joined by one of the most accomplished coaches in sports history, Anson Dorrance. Anson spent 47 years as the head coach of the University of North Carolina, including 45 seasons leading the women's soccer program as its only head coach. Across that time, he built one of the greatest dynasty in sports histories, winning 21 national championships. I would say this is the most successful sports dynasty ever, but one of, sure, the most by any head coach in Division I history. Also an AIAW national title, amassing 934 wins with the women's team, the most in women's soccer history. His overall career record, including 12 seasons leading the UNC men's program, stands at an extraordinary 1,106 wins, 152 losses, and 74 ties. He guided the U.S. women's national team to victory in the inaugural FIFA Women's World Cup in 1991, developed 19 national players of the year, including legends like Mia Hamm, Cindy Parlow, and led the Tar Heels to unmatched consistency, 31 College Cup appearances, 147 NCAA tournament wins, and a streak of 513 consecutive weeks ranked in the national poll. A 7-time National Coach of the Year and member of the National Soccer Hall of Fame, Anson's legacy is defined not just by trophies, but by the culture of excellence he built, the generations of leaders he shaped, and his profound impact on the growth of women's soccer worldwide. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Matthews Mentality Podcast. I got you, Zach. Anson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, Kyle. Thank you.
I remember walking by the track stadium, the Anson Dorrance Stadium, right?
Back when it was a track.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the soccer. It has your name on it.
Yeah, but before it had my name on it, it was a track.
Oh, it was just a track.
Well, no, there was a field in the middle.
Now it's just all field.
Correct.
Yeah. It was the nicest grass I've ever seen. And so I'm walking and, we're kind of getting ready to check in. And I'm just looking around and I look up at so, it's a stadium. So it says, UNC championships. It says national championships. And, I'm kind of like not thinking that clearly. And I'm just like, oh, there's a lot of years up there. And I said, let me count this out. And it was, at the time, 21. And I was looking and I was like, well, that goes back to whatever it was, 84. I was like, that's 21 of the last 40 years. You guys won a national championship and then just won another. I mean, I'll just dive right in. Like, how do you do that? Or how did you guys do that?
Honestly, whenever I'm asked this question, I sort of divide it up into 3 general areas. When I was a young coach, Dean Smith, Michael Jordan's legendary basketball coach, invited me to watch his team's work. And I love Dean Smith. And obviously on campus, he's a god, and he should be. He's just not just a great coach. He's a wonderful man. He takes care of all of us. And when I was young and didn't know anything, he would tell us, Anson, if you're ever bored, let me know. And if you want to come watch us train, we'll invite you in. You can bring your staff and everything. So I did. And I went over there. And again, as I mentioned to you earlier, I am not the most organized individual. All of a sudden I walk in and there's a section in the gym where we were going to watch. I was there with my staff. And we get there and we're sitting in this special section and they're handing us a schedule of the day's practice. And I was stunned. Down to the minute, the session was organized. And then all of a sudden, we're following our watches and to literally the second, if this is a 3-minute drill, at 3 minutes, a horn goes off and you see these athletes sprinting to a different section of the gym, and they're doing something else. Maybe at 1, they're doing a free throw shooting thing, then maybe some other kind of, 2v2s under the basket where you're boxing out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So every part of the gym had sort of a different vibe in terms of what everyone had to do. And then I'm watching the session go on. I'm seeing underneath each basket a manager with a clipboard recording the data at that basket. And then at the end of practice, I see Dean gathering the boys together, and I see all these basically assistant managers sprint to the scores table, and sitting there is the head manager. And he compiles that day's practice data. So he's grabbing all the clipboards from all the managers. Now you see him and back in those days, of course, he didn't have a cell phone where he could hit a button and he would have a calculator. He's actually got a adding machine there, and he's adding up numbers. And then while Dean is finishing his address for the troops, behind him now is the head manager. And Dean turns around, grabs the list from the guy, and he has ranked the 12 guys in practice based on practice data. Starts reading off names. Top 4 guys leave the shower immediately. Next 4 guys are lined up on basically the end of the court, free throw line and back, middle of the court and back, other free throw line and back, end of the court and back. And so all of a sudden, they're sprinting. The last 4 guys are sprinting until the end of recorded time. And so what I loved is, first of all, the data collection. Secondly, the immediacy of the feedback.
Sure.
And then I was thinking, my gosh, this is incredible. So we stole that idea from him. We soccerized it. We took it to a completely different level. And we named it the competitive cauldron.
That was my next question, the competitive cauldron. And I think I said, talk about what this is and why you did this specifically with girls, women. I think you call them the kids, but with females.
Well, I was brought up, as I shared with you earlier, a different sort of childhood. Born in Bombay. We lived in Bombay, Calcutta, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, Singapore.
Your dad was in the oil and gas
business, correct. So we were basically transferred every 3 years. In between those transfers, we would have a 3 to 6 month home leave in Lewisburg, North Carolina. So wherever I was in the world, Anson, where are you from? Well, I'm from Lewisburg, North Carolina. So wherever I was a North Carolinian. But what ended up happening with all these different moves is I learned all these different cultures, but I also didn't know anything about American sports. I didn't have television. I didn't know anything about American football, for example. So whatever culture I was in, I would learn those sports and try to master them. So in Singapore, I became an extraordinary badminton player. In all these different countries in the world, I became basically a master of that particular sport to compete in the culture. So, we were talking earlier about cross-training. I had the first, 18 years of my life were extraordinary cross-training. So I can play any sport. In fact, while I was at UNC, I was so confident in my ability to beat everyone on campus. I'm talking about the quarterbacks in the football team, the point guards in basketball, the tennis players. I would challenge anyone on campus to a 20-sport competition, and I would win. Didn't matter who it was. Because first of all, most athletes can't even name 20 sports.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I can play them. And so I was very confident in my abilities because of this. But the other thing that was interesting is I was raised in a family where the best athlete of the kids was my younger sister. She was a better athlete than I was. And the best athlete between my mother and my father was my mother. She had swimming records at American University. She was #1 on the tennis team. I mean, she was an amazing athlete. So I used to watch my mother kick my dad's rear end in. And of course, when you're overseas and you don't have television influencing you, you're thinking, my gosh, this is interesting. So I guess the males of the species aren't the superior ones. The females are. Because my younger sister, you would never want to cross her. She would just tear you to shreds. And my mother, so anyway, I was brought up in a different culture. So for me, I've seen women compete. So I wanted to structure an environment for my women where competition was embraced. And the way to do that was the Cauldron. And so at the end of every practice, we would have the analytics people assemble the training environment. And then by the next day on a bulletin board in full public view, you would see where you ranked in 28 different categories. Now, obviously, we're not doing all 28 every single practice day. So some of them stay up there for a long time. Like the fitness testing at the beginning of the season stays up on the bulletin board year-round to remind you, yeah, I didn't get fit coming into the season, so there's a reason I'm sitting on this bench. So we are sharing data on a consistent basis with our kids based on performance. So here's what they know. If you want to get on the field, you got to play. Not just play, you got to win. So figure out a way to win. And then what I have loved over the years is these alpha females come in. Their entire lives, they've been told, that's not ladylike. And all of a sudden these boys that are brought in, this because you're brought up in that culture. If you're a male and you're competitive, you're put on the top of a pedestal. Yeah. If you're a woman and you're competitive, there's something wrong with you. Are you kidding me? There's nothing wrong with you. And finally, when these women get to Chapel Hill, for the first time in their lives, they are totally embraced for being alphas. We want alphas. If you're an alpha female, go to the University of North Carolina because you're going to be embraced.
Yeah, it's like for the first time they found their tribe, they found their home.
And so that's what we believed in. But the tool that we used and developed was right from Dean Smith.
And so Again, you do this at the camp, and you're right. It's again, my oldest daughter is 11, turning 12, so I'm just kind of getting introduced. But you go there and you do a lot of 1v1s, and some are comfortable with it, but you can tell a lot aren't. And then
Mhm.
even if they'll compete at the end of it, it's like, who won? It's like, oh, I don't really know. Maybe you did. No, did you? And it's like you're trying to teach, like, no, you won, and say you won. Or if you lost, you just, I lost and I need to get better. But it's so I had written down, like, why do you think we as a society, or society has conditioned women away from being competitive? And why is it so important to make women comfortable with competition and being competitive?
I certainly don't need to explain any of this to you. Once you get out in the real world, you basically eat what you kill.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you're a woman, you also eat what you kill. So you better get comfortable with it, because if you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to
Yeah, that's
survive.
a great point.
And so, and heck, you've built your business with this understanding. So I'm sure the women you hire are similar. I mean, they want to be the best at what they're doing, and so why do we, I guess, develop them differently? We shouldn't develop them differently. We should basically develop them in this area the way we do our men, because that's going to give them a survival, instinct, because you've trained it into them. And if you look at the kids that have come through our program, where they've ended up is extraordinary. The president of U.S. Soccer right now is a kid that played for me, Cindy Parlow. It's a position traditionally basically governed by men. One of my kids, because her dad was in the Navy, jumped in the Navy. She's now an admiral in the Navy. So you look at all these women that don't necessarily end up as professional soccer players, that end up in different professions. They go right to the top. I've got a kid climbing Nike right now. They just made her, global leader for Nike women's football, and she's young because she's comfortable. She's comfortable because she knows what the mission is. She's going to go in to whatever environment she's in. She's going to dominate it, and she's not going to be embarrassed about it. In fact, that kid that's climbing the Nike ladder, she used to argue with me after every single practice about, well, okay, I didn't actually lose that. The girl cheated, and I would basically I was the Supreme Court. So if there was an issue and who won or lost, come and make your case to the Supreme Court. And I would say, overruled, you lost, to heck with it. And she would get so angry with me. She says, why are you not embracing the fact I was actually the winner here? I said, Darcy, I don't care whether or not you won or lost. I was trying to create an environment of competition, and you proved to me how much this means to me. So you've checked all the boxes for me. Those numbers, I don't need to look at the numbers to put you on the field. You're one of the most fierce women I've ever trained. Of course you're going to be on the field. I don't care about your ranking. And you've created the environment I want, which is you want to rip that girl's throat out right now because of what just happened. Isn't that the way you feel? Yeah. So I hope you take that into the next game and rip the other girl's head off in this competition, because you're comfortable with it. So remember this. So I had no issue with all of these things. And these women end up extraordinary women because they're allowed to be who they are. I mean, if you read Mia Hamm's book, Go for Gold, there's a line in there I love. It's like, when I got to North Carolina, I could finally be the athlete I was. Who was she? She was a shark with blood in the water. And she got to North Carolina and she was embraced for who she was, and she loved it.
One of the, I think you'll like this. One of the questions we ask when we're interviewing people here is, would people describe you as a sore loser? And most people, I think, look at that and who wants to be a sore loser? And they go, no. And we're looking for sore losers, because sore losers, they can't take losing because they're so competitive. It eats away at them. It almost brings them to certain behaviors like lying, cheating. But you're like, no, it's like, the thought of losing is so repulsive to your DNA that you will do whatever it takes, which as a kid, you lie, you cheat. But as you get older, you realize that actually through discipline, through preparation, through hard work, through training, you are lowering the probabilities you ever experience a loss, not eliminating them, of course. And so I just gave away the secret. And now everyone's gonna be like, yes, I'm a sore loser. But I was gonna ask, do you find extremely competitive people have that kind of sort, like losing is just, it eats away at them so much that to some degree they're sore losers, but they just do whatever it takes to avoid it, right?
Correct. And obviously that drives effort, performance, and all the different factors that can make you extraordinary. But let me get back to something you mentioned
please.
earlier that I want to dive into that I think is very important for people to understand. I'm glad you had the eye to see at the camp the kids that struggled with the competition, with the 1v1. which is why we push it so often. And I even tell stories about, and I don't really use soccer that much because most of the parents that are there, they don't really understand anything about soccer. But almost all the parents there, certainly the dads, know a lot about basketball. So I talk about this story in basketball, and this is a very common story that I think every parent, certainly the males in the family, would understand, the dads. I'm out there, I'm shooting hoops. All of a sudden, within 10 minutes, another guy shows up. We shoot for a little bit, and all of a sudden, one guy turns to the other and say, "Hey, you want to go?"
Yeah, you want to go.
We all know what that means. We know what that means. And then let's see who the alpha is. And you play 1v1.
Mm-hmm.
If a girl shows up and she's shooting hoops and another girl shows up, one of the girls doesn't say, "Hey, do you want to go?" At most, they will play a turn-taking, non-confrontational competition, like horse. I take a shot uncontested. If I make it, you have to take a shot from the position I was on the basketball court. And if you miss it, you have an H. And you lose the game if we can spell horse. So basically,
best case scenario, yeah.
So basically, the way we want our women to be socialized is not direct confrontation. The trouble with 1v1 in soccer, it's combative. There are collisions.
It's physical.
That's correct. And it's very uncomfortable. And even if you look at the way we raise our boys and girls growing up, you look at the early girls' games back in my era, and I'm so old, I'm dating myself with this description. You play jacks, where you bounce a ball, you sweep the jacks, and then you catch the ball, and then you go. So I take a turn, I don't interfere with what you're doing, and then turns back and forth. We're not interfering with each other. Or hopscotch. You hop through the squares,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not interfering, and then basically it's turn-taking competition. It's interesting when young girls are also playing with each other, and if they're playing a game, if there's any kind of confrontation in the game dissolves. With girls, if boys are playing, the whole game is a debate. 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, the whole game is a debate, and what is preserved at all costs is the game. And so what you and I and our culture of boys and men are comfortable with is this kind of confrontation. And we're just wired differently, but a part of it is a sociology of what we embrace as human beings. Now, to get back to something you talked about earlier, I think it is important to be a gracious loser.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I lose, I am as gracious as possible. After the loss, I will, basically praise the opposition, and I think it's important for us to be that way.
Do you mean it?
Yes, I do.
It
because
took
I
me
think
a long time when
no, but we have to.
When you're like
Yeah.
12, good game.
Yeah,
Good
no,
game.
of course,
You're like
yeah.
looking down and you're like, I can't believe I have to do this.
Yes, no, but it's
When you
learned
get older,
behavior.
when you get older,
Yeah, it's learned behavior, but
Yeah.
it's important because basically what you're trying to demonstrate is you're big enough to embrace
Agreed.
this. But also what you're also embracing in a very positive way is you're tough enough to take responsibility for the loss. And that's the construction of winning in the future. So a part of the humility in being gracious in defeat is to embrace the opposition. I was coaching the U.S. women's national team one year, and we were about to play Norway. Norway was one of the top teams in the world. The coach of Norway was a guy named Evan Pellerud. And we played him, and this was back when the United States had no respect in the international game, and we beat Norway. Pellerud came right up to me after the game and congratulated me and then gave me a list of the different areas in the game where we absolutely dominated him. And I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh, this guy is going to be hell to compete with. And he was. Because he didn't have excuses, because he had excuses. 3 of his best players were not there. His center forward wasn't there. His center back wasn't there. His playmaker, his 3 most important players were not there. He could have said, well, coach, congratulations, but I'm so sorry, but we left, these players back in Norway. And, no, he could have said that because I knew who wasn't there. He didn't say any of that. He didn't give himself an excuse to lose. He congratulated me, and he proceeded to tell me all the different areas that I dominated. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to be tough forever while this guy's coaching. And they were. That was the team we played in the World Cup final in 1991. They were extraordinary. And then they won the following year in Sweden, the World Cup back then. So basically, you do have to be gracious in defeat. And you have to acknowledge the areas where you failed. And what was incredible about Pellerud is he's telling me these things right in front of me right after the game. And I was thinking, this guy's going to be trouble, and he absolutely was.
Training women to be more competitive. I mean, you did a phenomenal job explaining not just how, but like the benefits of that. And I think my question is, why do we not do that? I actually want to go back. I have your bio in front of me. I want to read it because it's going to lead to my other question. You spent 7 years as head coach at UNC, University of North Carolina, including 45 seasons, leading women's soccer program as its only head coach. Greatest dynasty in NCAA, as far as I could tell, won 21 national championships, the most national championships by any coach in Division I history across all sports, and both male and female. An AIAW national title, so really 22. 934 wins. You also coached the men's team simultaneously the first 10 years, so 1,100 wins. I mean, it's crazy. And one of the things I wrote down, I said, so outside of the competitive cauldron, which the question I had asked previously, like what is the one thing that allowed you to maintain, when you talk dynasty and you think of the Chicago Bulls, like 6 titles over 8 years, or the Lakers, or it's always the Patriots had 6 titles over 12 years. You guys won 21 over 41. I mean, more than half the national. Like I said, I was walking through the stadium and I was like, I'm not a mathematician. I'm a football guy. It's hard for me to count that high, but I said, I think that's more than half the titles. And then you came out and I was like, that's when I first met you. But what is, outside of the competitive culture, what is the single biggest thing that you did, or as a program you guys did, that you really assign credit to being able to maintain that over 4 decades? Because again, most dynasties, it's 4 years, it's 8 years, it's 12 maybe. 40 years, I don't think, even John Wooden was, 12 titles over 20 years, which is incredible, but like not 40. That's something different.
There are 2 other pieces that I would attach to the cauldron. The second piece is also absolutely critical, and that is basically living a principle-centered life. And as you know, from someone that's running a business that has played on sports teams, that knows Pete Carroll, who, by the way, is one of the people I admire most in the sporting world. I just love the man. You want to create a culture.
You talk about competition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, he's absolutely into all of that sort of stuff. But the other thing that you could see just flying off of Pete Carroll, he cares about people.
He does, yeah.
He cares about people, and he communicates that in the most positive way, and he does it all the time. And to do that, as you know, is exhausting. It's
not for him. I don't know. Yeah, for me,
no, but for trust me, it is for him. But that's how tough he is. He is so tough.
He's built different.
Well, he's extraordinary as a result. So
you're talking about principled life.
Yeah, principle-centered living. So for me, what I think is also critical is to, within your team or within your organization, you have to construct a set of core values that basically everyone lives. That character piece, I think, makes all the difference in the world. Because just like with DNA, it's passed down. A freshman comes in and the DNA is basically a part of the senior class because they've lived this for 3 years. It's coming into the 4th year now. And the freshmen are going to be learning it. So they're learning from the people that went before them. They're learning from the people above them. Mia Hamm gave our commencement address this year at the University of North Carolina. And she talked about all of us have to learn to carry the water. And so what they're going to see in their leadership from the seniors is the seniors carrying the water even for the freshmen. So this principle-centered living has to be passed on, basically class to class to class. You've got 4 years to learn it and 1 year to basically teach it and lead it aggressively as the senior class, because my leadership council is 1 freshman, 1 sophomore, 1 junior, and then every single senior. So every single senior is expected to live a principle-centered life and demonstrate it. But then the other thing, which is terrifying, especially for young women and girls, is there's a peer evaluation of whether or not you're living the core values.
Yeah.
And so twice a year, at the end of the fall, the end of the spring, you are voting on the girls that are living each core value and the ones that aren't. And so you basically get a report card on your character. And this is terrifying for a young girl because she wants to be.
It's terrifying for a boy, man.
Well, but not as much, believe it or not. For the young women, this is everything. For years, I never shared the results. I never shared the results because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if I shared this with my team, one of my players would jump off a bridge. So I just wouldn't share it. And then all of a sudden, I got really angry with this one girl because the way she was treating everyone on the team, even the managers. The managers come to practice every day.
You got to be nice
They
to the managers.
serve you. They serve you. They move cones. They move goals. They bring you water bottles. I mean, they're serving you.
Yeah.
And she was treating them like just so poorly. And so I think, okay, I'm going to share with her her peer evaluation. And I put it down in front of her. And all of a sudden,
wow,
she was quiet as could be. And then in a really low voice, she said, I have to change. And then she did. It was the most remarkable change in the history of the University of North Carolina. And every senior has the opportunity to give a senior speech as they leave the program in the banquet in the senior spring. And her speech is one of the greatest I've ever heard because she talked about that. She thanked everyone in the room, basically thanked everyone in the room for letting her know that she didn't have a good idea of who she was. And they shared with her that, you know what, we don't think you have any character. We don't think you treat people well. We don't think you do this. And she decided, well, I'm going to change. And it was 180. And her speech was extraordinary. I'm thinking, okay, from now on, bang.
You just hit him with it.
We're not going to put it on a bulletin board at the practice complex. But then when I meet with them, whenever they fall below a certain line in any core value, I'm going to talk about, I think we can live this core value better. Do you agree? And of course, it's a rhetorical question. They all say yes. And then it's a part of reconstructing their character in the areas where they're weak. And so the first principle of competitive Cauldron creates competition in practice. That elevates everyone in practice. In fact, what I tell kids that come into camp, I want you to go into every practice and rip everyone's head off. You're doing you're doing yourself and the entire team a favor. Because trust me, if you're competing, you're making everyone around you better by having to compete against you. Don't think you're doing people a favor by hiding yourself under a bushel or under an illusion that you're not competitive. Demonstrate it. You're going to raise the level of practice. And so a part of it is the Cauldron to create that. But the second thing is you've got to live a principle-centered life. But you're going to have people evaluating you on this. And the third thing, and this is something you would completely understand, especially since we walked through the sales room first. What's critical is we've got to get everyone's personal narrative to the truth as fast as possible. Talk about eating what you kill. I assume that your salespeople are paid based on what they sell.
Yes.
That room are filled with people that eat what they kill. And that has to be a principle. It has to be a part of what we evaluate our people with. So the third thing is my main job as a coach is to get everyone's personal narrative to the truth as fast as possible. So that's about accountability. That's about basically embracing your failures, and then it's recovering from them. Because everyone comes in with an illusion. Everyone comes in with a false narrative about who they are. And the trouble with most soccer players that I recruit, and I mentioned this to you before, they're not just the best player on the team they've come from, because every kid that comes in is clearly the best player on every team she's ever played on.
From the city, the
That's
state,
correct. Exactly
region.
Right. Yeah, these are the best players in the country, and now there's a collision. They're no longer the best. They're no longer the best in anything, and it's shocking. So now, can they recover? And the ones that can't recover are the ones that are calling their parents during the preseason week, telling them how great they're doing. So the illusion the mother and father have is, oh my gosh, I can't wait to go to the game this weekend because my kid's going to be starting based on what she was telling me. But no. She was basically lying through her teeth. I mean, the last thing you're going to tell your parents after you've dominated every athletic contest they've ever watched in their lives is say, oh, guess what, Dad? I had my rear end handed to me every practice all week. I'm hoping I make the travel team.
Especially if they're the type of parents, which is a conversation for later, the type of parents that's happiness ebbs and flows with your performance.
Exactly right. Yeah. They're under another similar pressure like you described to tell them that everything is great and they're doing great. And then all of a sudden they're on the bench. And now what's happening? The dialogue between the player and the parent becomes toxic because now they're throwing the coach under the bus. It's like that story I told you about the sociologist.
Yeah.
We bring in this sociologist in 2012. Bubba Cunningham, my AD, very smart man. He brings in the smart men from campus, and we have some very smart men on our campus, as does every university. The preeminent sociologist comes in, and he's explaining to us who we're recruiting. And so first slide is 1969, the year I graduated from high school. Kid comes home from school, all F's on his report card, and the parents are screaming at the kid. Now it jumps to the year he's giving the lecture, 2012. Kid comes home from school, all F's on his report card. The parents are screaming at the teacher. So what is our modern culture doing? If your kid has failed under my leadership, I am to blame. I even had this one parent screaming at me because I wasn't successful in motivating her kid to be a better player. And I was thinking, are you kidding me? So I was blamed for everything, including lack of motivating her to get fit, to work hard, and to become a great player. And I was thinking, are you kidding me? And that's where our culture is right now. And so this has to change. So what's my main job from my first day of practice through my first player conference? The first player conference is getting their personal narrative of the truth. And Kyle, you'll understand this. In fact, I think you'll enjoy this. So I love my first player conference with a freshman. And here's the way it goes. We're talking about 12 different categories when we talk to these freshmen. And we're evaluating them in 12 different categories. The first category, with every kid, we talk about self-discipline. We have a standard for fitness when you come into UNC. It's called hitting 40 on the beat. Every kid knows this. We've sent them stuff to do in the summer to get 40 on the beat. Every kid on the roster can get 40 on the beat. This isn't a talent. This is your commitment to a work ethic. This isn't something you're born with. This is something you can decide to do. Now, that's correct. Now, some people, it'll be a little bit easier. Like the ectomorphs like me, we can kill the beep. I am built to run. Some of my mesomorphs, like that girl that you described, that was ripped. Yeah. It's harder for her to do well in the beep. But can she pass the beep? Yes, she can. Now, does she have to do more work than I do? Yep. I am born to run. She's born to sprint.
What were the names you called those?
Well, I'm an ectomorph. I'm a scrawny little thing. She's a mesomorph. She's covered in musculature.
I'm going to call myself a mesomorph moving forward. Because I can sprint, but the long distance has been a challenge.
But any physiologist...
just moving forward, I want that in my bio, mesomorph.
Yeah, and we love the mesomorphs, and they play certain positions. I mean, you'd love one in goal, you'd love one at the center forward, you'd love one at least one at center back, maybe one at defensive midfield. Yeah, you want those.
I remember in football, the play lasts 3 seconds, then we get like 40, 50 seconds to chill. You soccer guys are crazy.
Right, you got to run the whole time. Yeah. So anyway, we're in the player conference. They've all done their beep test. And now you are trying to get the kid to evaluate herself. And this is what I mentioned earlier with you at lunch. I can't tell her that she's going to be a national team player because it doesn't work that way. The way it has to work is she has to tell me she's a national team player, because what she's doing then are all the things to become a national team player. So here's the way the conversation goes. We have these 12 categories. I want you to rate yourself in each of these 12 categories. If you give yourself a 5 in self-discipline, you're telling me that you have the self-discipline of a full national team and Olympic team player.
Is that out of 5?
That's a 5.
Oh, understood.
If you give yourself a 4.5, you're saying you're a professional level player in this category. If you give yourself a 4, you're saying you're a UNC starter level player in this category. If you give yourself a 3.5, you are saying you will play in every half. You'll be substituted in every half at UNC. If you give yourself a 3, you've made the travel team in this category. If you give yourself a 2.5, you don't even make the travel team in this category, all the way down to 1 or 0, however low they want to go. Mm-hmm. So I asked the kid right out of the gate, I've gone through that rap. So now I need her self-evaluation because I'm trying to make her self-aware. Where are you in self-discipline? What does every single freshman say? With no exceptions.
I'm a 5.
No.
What?
They know they're not that good.
Oh, okay.
Because if they were that good, they'd be on the national team. So what do they say?
I don't know.
They say 4. Why?
Because that's what they want to be.
They want to start.
Yeah.
This is a freshman. She's brought in on a full scholarship. She wants to start. She will say a 4. Then I will say, well, what'd you get on the beep? Now she starts to sweat. And she says, I got a 28 on the beep. And then I will ask her, what's the standard for the University of North Carolina in preseason in the beep?
40.
Correct. I'm going to give you a 2.8. I'm going to take your beep score and I'm going to shift the decimal point over 1 spot. Now the girl is an abject terror. She's got 11 more hurdles to clear before she's out of this player conference. And now she thinks everything I have is a matter of data. So now she can't lie anymore in her own mind because everything is data-driven. It's just like your killers in your sales force in there.
Mm-hmm.
They know how their family's going to get fed.
Sure.
So they're deciding whether or not to work hard or, to find another job that's less stressful. And so now the girl is thinking across from me the same thing. And we go through all the other 11. Now, do I have data attached to every one? No, I don't. Because some of the stuff it is very difficult to measure. But in their mind, I have data on it. And eventually I will have data on almost all of it. But the whole point in the player conference is to get this kid to stop lying to herself and stop lying to me. One of my favorite statements from Mac Brown, who, by the way, is a real character. Do you know him at all?
I don't. I meant just from...
I love the man.
Yeah.
I mean, when we
Seems
go
like a
out
sweet guy.
on fundraising things, he was the keynote speaker. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things he used to say is, all right, when the kid finally arrives at UNC that he's killed himself to recruit, he walks up to the entire team and says, all right, gentlemen, this is a great day because today is the day that I can stop lying to you and you can stop lying to me.
That's great.
And I love that statement because, in the recruiting process, you're kissing so much rear end in.
Yep.
Because you're hoping this guy's going to end up, the next great player, but you don't know because, they're not fully formed yet and they haven't decided whether or not they want to be great. And you can have all the talent in the world, as you know, and not be very good at all. And so what I love about Mac is, all right, today's the day we stop lying to each other. So the player conference is about getting that kid's personal narrative to the truth as fast as possible because she is laced with excuses and she is trying to avoid pain and accountability. So the body's self-defense mechanism to avoid self-awareness is basically that. I'm going to make excuses for every bad thing that's happened to me that'll free me of pain and free me of responsibility. My job is to make them accountable for everything as fast as possible. And it's not just on the field. It's also in the way they live their lives. They're principle centers. So now we're trying to get them to take responsibility. And that evolution, in my opinion, is the most important thing I'm doing. Yeah. Am I training some kids that end up winning world championships and gold medals? Yeah. And national championships? Yeah. But my main mission isn't soccer development. It's human development. But as you well know from your understanding of sports, but also the nature of your own business, the two are very well connected and aligned.
So to sustain success, 4 decades, 40 years, 21, competitive Cauldron, principled life, character, core values, and then the personal narrative to the truth as fast as possible. Basically, just get them to accept the reality of the truth about who they are in that moment, and then
decide on who they want to be.
I was going to say how to make the decision. So I want to talk recruiting. What do you look for in a player? Obviously, start with the physical characteristics. If we'll have a bunch of soccer moms listening, it's what physically do you look for in a player? But really, what I'm more interested in is like the non-measurable traits that you look for when you're deciding who to recruit.
Well, we got so many different boxes to check in this, but and the athletic boxes.
It's a loaded question.
No, but that's okay.
What position do they play?
I can go over. I can go over it with you, and I have no issue sharing that for everyone that's listening. So, first of all, it's the classic athletic qualities. Are you fast? Can you change directions? Can you accelerate, which is a little bit different than are you fast? Because you can be fast and have very average acceleration.
Yeah.
So you take a while to get up to top speed. That's not a positive soccer quality.
You need a fast 10-yard split.
That's correct. So basically, for a soccer player, the most important qualities are acceleration and agility, the ability to change directions. Now, the other qualities are all positive. It's good to be fast as well. It's also good to have a great vertical jump. It's also good to be strong because we are a collision sport like football. So when we're talking about mesomorphs and Yeah, make sure this is in his bio
Yeah, you
from
hear
now
that?
on.
I got the winningest coach in history
Yeah.
calling me a mesomorph, so you guys better get on that.
No, yeah, well, that's
you.
good. Yeah, because
I'd like that the first bullet point on the bio, mesomorph. Thank you.
well, this is
The strong emoji.
Yeah, there has to be a strong emoji because most people don't. I understand, like I have a deep vocabulary clearly, but
no, I'm with you, and I would love to be a mesomorph. Tragically, I'm not. So the only quality I have is I can suffer. So if you're bigger and you come after me, you better kill me, because that's the only way you're going to stop me. Because I have a high pain threshold, and most of these teeth are false for one reason or another. So trust me, I have a high pain threshold, baby, and I don't care what I look like. Although I wear this hat because I'm losing all my hair, so I do have that piece of vanity left in me, which is tragic. I hate it. I hate that part of me. No, I hate that part of me.
It makes you look like a coach.
No, but you look good. I mean, I don't know if you dye that stuff. No, it looks good.
I got some good genetics.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm envious.
I do have like a couple grays creeping, and I blame that on high interest rates. So.
I'm with you. Anyway, yeah, those three things, Kyle, you hit it. Competitive Cauldron, core values, getting your athlete's personal narrative to the truth as fast as possible.
We were touching on physical characteristics.
Oh, yeah. So
speed, direction.
So acceleration and agility are the two most important. Speed's also critical. Strength is important.
In the lower half, I assume, big time, right?
No, you need collision strength. Cool. So basically, upper body strength. In soccer, you're allowed to hit someone with your shoulder, as long as you don't pile drive them.
Chicken wing them?
No, you can't chicken wing them. No. Your arm has to stay, but then once you're involved in the collision, But this is where I'm glad you're a Cro-Magnon and your daughter is as well.
Yes, Neanderthal DNA, 13%.
And I like that. That's good. That's good.
Me. I don't know. If
this is all good, because if she ends up a great header, it's the weakest part of the women's game.
The header.
Yes, because most of them aren't brave enough, and secondly, they're heading a ball designed for men. And their skulls are smaller, and they don't have half our neck strength. Not half, that's a wrong percentage. The biggest physiological difference between a man and a woman, other than the obvious, is the strength of the neck and the size of the skull.
About that.
So when a girl heads a ball, she can be concussed because when she heads the ball, she doesn't have the neck strength to sustain it. And all of a sudden, her head snaps. Yeah. And the way you get a concussion is your brain is bouncing around in your skull.
Oh, I know.
So, yeah, you know that from, your sport. So basically, the fact your daughter's got a massive skull, she's got to develop her neck strength. If she's brave, then the mom is going to want her to develop basically neck strength, because then she's not going to get concussed.
You hear that, Atlanta? Kylie's got to do some neck exercise. Kylie's going to be like, you told him I had a big head?
No.
Sweetheart, I love you, wherever.
She won't want to do neck exercises, because what she's afraid of is looking like a Neanderthal. Because one of the hugest fears my young women have is they're going to end up looking like mesomorphs. Correct, exactly right. So we can't use this. We can't use this neck thing too much, because, and obviously I know all this. My wife's a former professional ballet dancer. They all want necks like swans, thin necks, and anyway, so. We can't drive this part of the conversation too long, because we're going to be losing all of the women on this call.
Fun, but all right, so heading, that's the biggest weakness in
the women's game.
Great job physiologically explaining why. All right, what about any other physical characters, but then really the mental ones? Yeah,
so for me, everything comes down to competitive fire. Yeah. First three things we talk about in the player conference is self-discipline, competitive fire, and self-belief. That's the foundation for athletic greatness. If you check all those boxes, even though you've got, in my system, 9 more to check if you want to be a world champion and an Olympic gold medalist, those 3 are the most important 3 in the foundation.
Competitive fire, self-discipline, and self-belief.
Self-belief. When I ask the kid what her self-belief is, I want her to say 5, even if she's not a 5. Because the biggest problem in women's athletics is confidence. And I think the biggest problem in general for the women is confidence. And yet it's a chicken and egg. It's very hard to help a young woman that I'm coaching to develop confidence, except to convince her to work hard. Because the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. So what I want to construct in my athletes is to check all the boxes, because then they're going to have an incredible belief that they've outworked everyone and to dominate them. But if this kid that, tells me that, she got 28 in the beep, and so she's got in self-discipline, she's 2.8, which is very, very low. And then she turns around, and when I say, what about your self-belief? And she says 5, all I'm going to do is write it down. I'm never going to interfere with that. Just like in this conversation, I'm going to tell her whether or not she's coachable, and she's not allowed to debate me. I am never going to interfere with her self-belief, and she's never going to interfere with my understanding of her coachability. So of the 12, 2 are off limits. One is off limits to me. The other one is off limits to her, because we're going to construct this extraordinary human being that's going to basically, again, win national championships, win gold medals, win world championships. And the others, a lot of it is with data that they can see and look at. And as you mentioned this, or maybe it was on what we were listening to from my AI, you can't improve what you can't measure. So we want to measure everything to allow the kids to improve.
Can you train a non-measurable like competitive fire?
Yes.
Is that nature versus or nurture or both?
No, you can train it. And the way we train it is by manifesting it. So everyone is ranked in our Cauldron. One of the awards at our athletic banquet is winning the competitive Cauldron. And right now, one of my kids that's climbing through the ranks, by the way, and this is a kid that we got her sort of in the back door. Her mother went to Duke. She wanted to go to Duke. She's dreamt all of her life of going to Duke, and Duke wasn't interested in her. So I get a call from the coach. The kid's from Florida. And he says, Anson, I can't believe it. I think this kid's got huge promise, but Duke's not interested. It doesn't look like all these schools she's interested in are interested in her. Do you mind just looking at her for me? I said, sure. So there was an event down there. I went to watch her at some tournament or something. And I said, okay, we'll bring her in. We don't have much money for her, but if she's willing to come on a room and book scholarship, we'd love to extend it to her. So as the kid comes in, and all of a sudden, I knew we had something. This kid competes like there's no tomorrow. Every single event, she wanted to be the best at it. And now this kid is starting to climb the U.S. women's national team. And this kid was unheralded, and she became my most competitive player, and she was the top of the competitive Cauldron. And now she's been brought into the full national team.
Wow.
She's been starting games for the United States, and I think in this next World Cup, she'll be on the roster.
Why do you think those other colleges missed her in high school?
I think some of it was she had injuries.
Okay.
And so obviously, and I tell this to my kids that are trying out for the national team all the time, if you're injured, don't go in. Don't go in. Oh, no, this is my chance to make the national team. I've been invited in. No, because here's what's going to happen. The coach has an image of you.
Yeah.
And that's why you've been invited in.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in hurt,
You're going to shatter it.
You're going to shatter that image, even if he knows you're hurt and you're trying to demonstrate to this coach that you will play through injury. No. And I've had some of these kids that just ignored me, and they went in and they were never invited back in again. So no, when you go in, you've got to be at peak fitness, peak performance, peak health, because this is your chance to make the team.
Question about being competitive. So it's kind of a philosophical question. It isn't just unique to girls. I think girls culturally, we allow this to last a lot longer, sometimes forever, too long in my opinion. This balance between being competitive and winning, but especially when they're young, everybody gets to play. We're here to have fun. It's not about winning or losing. Where do you draw the line? Maybe it's an age with, if I may, 5-year-olds we're there to have fun, and it's everybody plays, and it's a parody, and it's not about wins and losses. They don't keep score, even though I'm a psycho and I think they should, because I think you should train it from a young age. But at what age, let's just talk girls, like if you were running a youth sports soccer club, I guess, is when should it be like, no, we are keeping track of, we are doing the competitive Cauldron at practice. We're keeping track of wins and losses. It's not about everybody gets to play. How do you balance that? And when is it time to turn it up?
I have to give you a little history because you and I are very similar. I'm going to share with you my maturity as I matured. But
The only difference is you have slightly more national championships than I do, but it's
No,
a
no,
very
no.
small amount.
But you've built a business. Trust
Yeah.
me, you've done it all. So here we go. Back in the day when I was an undergraduate at the University of North Carolina, I had a wonderful friend by the name of Kip Ward. This is back in the hippie era. He was a real hippie.
You were a fake hippie?
No, I wasn't a hippie.
Mm.
I was a little. This is the kid that wanted to go to West Point. I was not a hippie, okay?
Yeah.
But I loved this guy because he was a great soccer player. He was a poet, and he and I became great friends. Anyway, he started this league in Chapel Hill. It was the first soccer league in the state of North Carolina. It was called the Rainbow Soccer League. The Rainbow Soccer League was a recreational, coeducational league where scores were not kept. He wanted me to be one of his lieutenants. One of his lieutenants was responsible for coaching an entire club, which I had no issue with. So I coached the elementary school team in the club. I coached the middle school team in the club. I coached the high school team in the club, co-ed, all these teams, and the adult team in the club. I also played on the adult team that I coach. So I coached the whole range of teams. Now, Kip was an absolute hippie. And I didn't believe in not keeping score, and I believed in winning. I believed in winning so badly, I went over to this black neighborhood right next to the Glen Lennox soccer fields, and I watched basketball all day, and I gave rainbow soccer scholarships to all these kids to play on my elementary school teams, my middle school teams, and my high school teams. I didn't need any help with the senior team. Give me the ball, get out of my way, and we will win every single game. So I didn't have to recruit for that, but I recruited for the other 3 teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I put these incredible athletes right down the middle, and we beat everyone to death. And of course, this was upsetting for everyone in the league. Now, the thing I really enjoy colliding with hypocrisy. They were angry with me, and I kept telling these other coaches and parents, a lot of the parents were right out of the academic community at the University of North Carolina. And I just didn't understand their hypocrisy. So you're upset that I believe in winning every game, and yet you don't think competition's that important. Well, I've discovered that if we win every game, our morale's a lot higher, but you're not really into this, so it shouldn't bother you. Of course it bothered them. So I was exposing their hypocrisy.
Sure.
Exactly right. And Kip loved me enough. He needed me involved to, coach these kids because obviously our morale was through the charts. Now, as I matured, because keep in mind, this creature I'm describing is 19-year-old undergraduate who's a bit of a psycho anyway. But I did start to mature eventually. So here's the way I'm going to answer your question. Rec level, sure, substitute at will. If they're all paying a certain fee, if you want to divide up their playing time equally, I have no issue with it. Rec level. If you start to cross the line into competition, even if everyone's paying money to compete in this whatever it is league, then you've got to decide as a coach how you're going to establish the parameters of playing time. And then you don't have to basically substitute. Rec level, equal playing time. But as we start to cross into competition, then you've got to structure it in a certain way. And so for me, keeping score, the competitive Cauldron, I'm asked this question all the time, when should I start it? Because some parents would want to jump in at a U10 level and do the Cauldron. I would say no, because that is going to shatter kids when they see they're on the bottom of the list. The college kids, if they're on the bottom of the list, hopefully that'll motivate them to change their place. But a young kid, no. So for the competitive Cauldron as you get younger, then just honor gold medalists, silver medalists, bronze medalists, top 3 kids in each category. And you keep everything else hidden so you're not exposing someone, but maybe honor the top 3 in categories. I've got 28 categories. Maybe you have 4 categories.
You're not a everybody gets a trophy guy?
No.
Okay.
No. But the other thing you do is you pick areas of the game that you're honoring. The 1v1 champion should get something. the girl that can shoot the ball the hardest, and you have a radar gun competition, should get it as well. And then a girl that can serve the ball the furthest in the air should also get a trophy.
Sprint competition.
Oh yeah, if you want to,
you did that.
yeah,
at
if you
the,
want
at
to,
the camp.
yeah, but whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
if you want to throw sprint competition, you're in.
Oh,
You'll
that's
love
great.
this story. So, you were there at the camp. The parents are always asking me because I get in the old days I got 200 emails a day,
Oh, I can only imagine.
and the parents are saying, "Well, what can we get you to read one of our emails? What do we have to do?" I said, "Well, in the first line in the email, I will read this email if this is in the first line. If your daughter's writing the email, have her say, obviously this has to be true. I am the 100-meter dash champion in the state of California."
That's a good one.
I am reading that email.
Or Florida.
There's another email, or Florida. There's another email I will read. My dad happens to be a billionaire. I am reading that email as well. So those are the two emails I'm going to read. And then what was hilarious, I couldn't believe the number of emails I got from girls whose dads were billionaires.
I got anyway. 1 billion pesos, if that makes sense.
So, yeah, I mean, but I would have 1v1. I would have radar gun, hitting the ball as hard as you can. That's encouraging them to live on a wall. Because if you live on a wall, you're going to develop a strike with power.
And you mean just smashing the ball into a wall, a literal wall?
I would say 3 days a week, 10 to 15 minutes. I promise you, if your kid did that and played 1v1, if she smashed it up against a wall twice a week and played 1v1 twice a week between now and college, she would be a full scholarship athlete and she'd start anywhere in the country. Mm. But what you would do to see if she's actually doing anything is every 3 months, take a radar gun out and let her hit 5 shots with her right, 5 shots with her left, and get her highest score and get her average score. Her average score will show you her technique consistency. Because she might hit a ball. And by the way, if she starts to get over 60 miles an hour by the time she's leaving high school, that's a full scholarship athlete. And in any position, up front, in the back. And I can go to your team right now, or another team, because obviously I know your daughter now. I could go to any youth team in the country with a radar gun, never watch them train. I can tell you who the leading scorer on the team is. The leading scorer on the team is the girl that can hit the ball the hardest. It's not complex. That goal is designed for men or boys, and you got a shorter creature in there with smaller hands. And if you hit a ball with power on frame, it's going in.
It's going in, yeah. Let me ask you a personal question. You're born in India. You moved around a lot. Mm-hmm. Ethiopia?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Switzerland, you went to school.
Yep.
Obviously, India, Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I moved around a lot as a kid. I went to, I think, 9 different schools, all told, different schools. And that was just in the States where everyone spoke English and, you know, everyone kind of liked what I liked and ate what I ate and spoke how I spoke. But, you know, I attribute that to helping build resilience in me and, you know, teaching me adaptability for someone who just naturally, for myself, is socially anxiety. Like I'm naturally shy, but you just learn. You got to get out there. I can't imagine what that was like for you as a kid growing up. One of the things certainly I know about you, and as I've gotten to know you, just super competitive. What influences do you think that very atypical childhood had on developing, you know, who you became, the winningest coach in history, and really what I'll assign, this is my observation, just the foundation of competitiveness that ultimately led to those results, plus lots of discipline and all that. But how much of that was you were just born that way versus this, what I believe is a very different childhood than most had, maybe kind of help develop it or mold that?
Yeah, I wouldn't trade my upbringing for anything. I think it shaped me in all kinds of positive ways. I think one way it did immediately was you become extraordinarily adaptable. Different schools, but getting back to our conversation earlier about cross-training, I would jump into the local athletic culture, whatever it was. And
cricket?
Yeah. I played, I was a slip in cricket. My first sports were cricket, rugby, field hockey, and I was a boxer. This is at a school in Kenya. It's English colony. It was an English school. So back in those days, you didn't play matches against other schools, you represented your color. So our school was divided up into 4 colors. I was mead, which is yellow, and I represented my color in those 4 sports. I was a really good boxer for all the reasons that you can probably tell now. I had a high pain threshold. My hands are really quick.
You could outsuffer.
Yeah, I could outsuffer, which is critical in boxing. But the first sport I actually played was field hockey, because in the English educational system, it's not just a sport for girls. So, in fact, when Karen Shelton, a bronze medalist in the LA Olympics, representing the United States in field hockey, was hired, she invited me out to field hockey practice, and I hadn't touched a stick in 10, 15 years, it seemed like, when she was there. And so I played field hockey with the girls' field hockey team at UNC. I love field hockey. I loved cricket. I loved boxing. And I didn't actually start playing soccer until I got to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And then I was so horrible relative to the other Ethiopians, it was actually rather humiliating, but humbling in a good way. So all these different places I moved, I jumped into the local sports culture.
If I asked your parents, would they say from the womb you were just hyper competitive, or
Yeah.
again, was that something you
No, yeah, from day one. And a part of it was my younger sister. For example, when my dad found out that I was representing Meade on the boxing team, he thought that was hilarious. And when you're really young and you're a boxer, you have these massive gloves which protects the person you're punching, because to move a huge glove takes forever. And then when it hits you, it's like
not too bad.
It's like nothing.
It's like a 20-ounce glove.
Exactly right. So, and it's for good reason. I mean, so we're all wearing these massive gloves. So my dad just wanted me to box Maggie, my younger sister. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think this is going to be a good idea.
There's no win there for you.
Yeah, there is. You're right.
If you beat her up, you're being mean. You're older.
And I'm older.
If you don't,
exactly right. Exactly right. So sure enough, he puts the gloves on Maggie, and Maggie goes psycho and literally knocks a tooth out of my mouth. These 2 are false, by the way. Knocks a tooth out of my mouth, and that's Maggie. But this is where I learned about women. If you don't condescend in training them, you're going to be shocked at what they could do. Mm-hmm. And so, I was terrified of Maggie because, she knocked your
tooth out.
Knocked a tooth out, but, quicker, faster, stronger until testosterone kicked in. Yeah. So I was living in a matriarchy between my mother and my sister.
And your sister helped kind of create this, or it's like gas on a fire.
Oh, exactly right. So she caused me to think that, I can push these women.
One of the things I said earlier were the immeasurable traits, and you listed one was, the first one was competitiveness, and I think everyone listening understands why that's valuable. What about leadership, right? And leadership can mean a lot of things. So how do you identify who's going to be a leader before you get them on campus? And then when they're there, can you, and if so, how do you foster and develop leadership qualities in your girls?
Well, thank you for that excellent question. I'm going to answer it. I don't think you're going to like the answer, but it is going to be honest because I want you to trust me. I speak in leadership conferences all over the country. I've spoken at, the Naval Academy, West Point. I've spoken all over the place because if you read my books, there's a lot of stuff in there that involves leadership. But here's what I tell anyone that's bringing me in to speak about leadership. If anyone in the room asks me if I can teach leadership, I'm going to say no. I'm going to cash your check, but I'm going to say no. And I'm going to tell them I've been trying to teach leadership every spring of my coaching life. 47 years, I've been trying to teach leadership in the spring, and I've never succeeded. Now, have I had some amazing leaders? Yes. But I think they were amazing leaders when I got them, and all I did was put them in a position to lead, and then they led. And I am still not convinced you can teach it. The closest book I've read that helped me with leadership and teaching women to be leaders was a Brene Brown book. And the title of the book says it all. The title of the book of Brene Brown's book is Dare to Lead. The biggest issue with women leading is they're terrified of it. And what terrifies women about leading is what the other women in the room are going to think about them and say about them. So as a result, they'd rather not say anything. And here's the thing with a soccer team and a soccer game. You need actually a minimum of 4 leaders. You need 1 leader on the front line at a minimum, 1 leader in midfield, 1 leader in the back, and the goalkeeper has to be a leader. If you don't have 4 leaders, 1 in each line, your team is not going to be extraordinary. And the toughest thing for me, and I work on this all spring with all of the kids, is to get them to open their mouths. Your smartest player knows what to do and what to say, but she's afraid to say it. So that book, in fact, if you would buy and read that book, I promise you, you'll learn a lot about leadership, not just about female leadership, but you'll learn about leadership because most people that don't lead are afraid. And women are afraid of what the other women are thinking about them or saying about them behind their backs if they try to lead. And it's tragic. And I only read that book in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, so I haven't really been marinating that book in my mind enough, because maybe I would change some of my leadership methodologies, or maybe I would just say, Brene, can I hang out with you for a day or so? Because I'd love to know, all this stuff, because this book is extraordinary.
So that's Brene Brown, Dare to Lead. Now, prior to that book, and that's the closest, it almost sounds like your answer, and again, maybe I didn't hear you, is you haven't yet really found the way to developing leadership. So it almost, by definition, your answer is they have to just be a leader by the time you get to them. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, and yet there's $1 billion industry in teaching leadership, but I think it's a false narrative. Now, I think there are a lot of incredible books out there, and I love all these business books, Good to Great, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So, like you, I've read a lot of the great business books, and by the way, I've learned a lot from those business books. But honestly, I don't think I've taught leadership. What I've had is some amazing leaders, and then they've sort of taken over. But I don't think I've done much to really impact on their leadership. I think they were leaders coming in, they had a chance, they grabbed it, and then they took off. But I don't think I taught them anything.
My experience, I don't think I ever was a naturally born leader. Like, I look at me as a kid, I wasn't the guy who led the group here, was the captain, and I think my leadership skills, whatever they may be, if there's any good ones in there, were really developed out of necessity. Was one day I found myself in a position where I had to run the meeting, or I had to think about what is the decision and how do I, not just the strategy, but how do I get my team to execute? And you start off, maybe some start off with an intuition to be slightly better than others, but I think I just learned my leadership just from effectively being forced in leadership situations where you don't really have an out. So you're like, all right, then I guess I got to make the decision. I got to call the play. I got to be the quarterback per se. So I guess if there's, in terms of kids and 15, 16, 17-year-olds, I would look for, have they been put in positions where they had to be the leader, whether they chose to or not? And because there are some kids that are just naturally like that. I wasn't one of those.
It's interesting. While you were talking, I was thinking about what people confuse leadership with. They try to expand the platforms of leadership by saying, oh, well, you lead by example. No, that's just your best player. I mean, that's a great player. So for me, the leadership in my sport, I guess the bar I want them to clear in my sport is I want them to lead verbally. And I've had some great ones, because there's some players you can't really, I guess, lead from the sideline. And the trouble with leading from the sideline is women listen to tone more than they listen to words. So based on your tone, they're hearing you or getting a sense that you're angry with them. And the trouble with a soccer field, it's 75 by 120. And if I am coaching the opposite side left back, I am screaming out what I want her to do. And what she's hearing is, oh my gosh, Anson's mad at me.
Yeah.
I am not mad at her. But for me to get this instruction across the field, I am screaming at the top of my lungs, and I'm not mad. I'm not mad at her. One year I solved it this way. I had a phenomenal leader that wasn't a very good player, but she was a good enough player to help me organize my team. And I played her at the attacking center half spot, which is a great position to hide someone that's not going to necessarily damage your team if she's struggling in the game. And I would play her for 15 minutes. She would sort out all the issues in the field for me, and then I would take her off. And she was marvelous, smart as can be, but also just resilient and tough. And I would scream at her, and I would say, hey, I can't believe it. So-and-so isn't balancing early, and now they're getting in behind us. Would you please let her know she's got to balance early? And she would turn to me, and she would nod. And then she would turn to the girl that could hear everything I just said, and she would say, did you hear that? And the girl would nod back at her, and she would go, taken care of. So I wasn't yelling at the girl. I'm yelling at this girl to solve the problem with that girl. So since that girl, I wasn't yelling at her, she's not intimidated by my tone. And now the instruction is done in the correct voice. Did you hear that?
It's either that or learn sign language, right?
No, but she was wonderful because we solved all the problems in the first 15 minutes with the opponent. And then I would take her off and put in a better player. But the better player wasn't a better leader. No, she was an inferior leader.
It's just that one could handle it.
Correct.
We've talked about leaders, talked about being competitive, what you look for in athletes. We have a lot of business leaders and aspiring leaders who listen to this podcast. And I would argue probably the biggest challenge they face, it's going to be people, and specifically what I call like the team dynamic, bad teammates. So I'm sure you had your fair share of players who just weren't great teammates or weren't great for the culture. So how did you approach them? How did you change the people or change the people? How did you try to make them better? You gave us one great example earlier about the gal who was being mean to the managers and everything, and you hit that accountability sheet on her, and she changed. What other strategies did you use to try and help someone be a better teammate? And then at what point did you say, hey, we have to cut bait. We have to sever this?
Yeah, the toughest decision we have to make in recruiting on an annual basis, and I'm sure every coach in the country and every sport wrestles with this. In fact, we wrestle with this so much, we bring this up in all of the head coaches get together periodically, and we have these coaches meetings. It's the dilemma of the incredible athlete that's a bad seed. And so we're recruiting a kid. Obviously, we try to vet them, but there's no way a coach will tell us if this is his best athlete and the University of North Carolina wants to recruit her. Is that coach going to say, well, I'll tell you, yeah, she's great on the field.
No,
she's great.
It reflects well on him. Like, hey, I put kids in
That's
UNC.
correct.
Yeah.
So basically
and you're not going to bat 1,000.
Exactly. So what'll happen is we won't find out that the kid we're bringing in is going to be toxic. Here's the interesting scenario. And this happens such a high percentage of the time, it's actually rather staggering. We'll bring in this kid that's not a very good teammate, and she's a phenomenal player. So her freshman year, she is fantastic. Why is she fantastic? Because she's pretending like she's a great teammate. She's a great athlete. She's contributing. Every single year after her freshman year, she'll become more and more toxic as she becomes comfortable in your environment. And then she will end up killing you. She'll end up killing recruiting possibly. She'll end up killing a team that had the potential to win a national championship. And even though you're tempted as a coach to bring this kid in, because what you'll think of is you'll think of the few kids you have brought in that have transformed,
yes,
because there are some, and you're going to think, well, I bring her into my culture, she will be embraced by these other extraordinary principle-centered women, and she will change. And then you'll bring her in thinking that it's going to happen because my culture will change her, and she takes your team down. I mean, we've had some teams that should have won national championships that didn't, and I know why. And it was my mistake. It was my mistake in the recruiting process because I was so enamored with talent. I recruited talent over character.
You mentioned there were some players that did change. Are those the exception to the rule? Is it very rare?
I would say 50% of the time, you can change them in a positive way. But 50% of the time, no matter what you do, they're going to be toxic.
I know, like kind of process-wise or culturally, it's not as common for a coach. Let's say a gal was with you for a year or two, and she might be a good player, but you're like just toxic, not good.
Mm-hmm.
Where you cut's a bad word. You're just like, you're almost like, hey, you got to go somewhere else. Much less so than business, where if someone's not working out, it's just more understood. You could say, hey, we're going to move on from that person. But did you ever have to make that decision where you're like, look, I just can't have this person on the team anymore?
Yeah. So what we have is on our core values, we have, we also have that 5-point scale.
Mm-hmm.
As you're evaluating each teammate in the 13 core values, you can give out 1 5, the best example of this core value on the team. And then your next highest grade is a 4. And basically 4 is an extraordinary example of this core value. 3 is lives this core value most of the time. 2 is occasionally lives this core value. 1 is rarely lives this core value.
Yeah.
But you can also give a 1.5. You can give a 3.75. You can do anything you like if you didn't want to just be right on the money.
Sure.
If in the 13 core values, this girl's average core value is below a 3.0, I try to get them to transfer or quit.
Yeah.
Correct. Because basically this culture isn't for you. And we support all the kids. And usually if a kid transfers, they're transferring because they're not getting the playing time they would like. And I understand that fully. And we've had some great kids transfer that I loved, but they want to play more minutes, and I understand it. And so I support them. In fact, what Damon and I do on a regular basis is we help these kids chase the school they'd be most interested in. So we'll call the coach up. We'll make sure the money's there for them in case they're embarrassed to talk about the money. So we'll actually help these kids. But that if you're below a 3.0, this culture is not for you. And then we'll try to find them another place. And it's sort of interesting. For 1 year, I worked for Franklin Covey. Franklin Covey is Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Franklin is the time management guy. His name is Hiram Smith. He wrote the 10 Natural Laws of Time and Life Management. And almost every spring for the last 10, 15, 20 years, my athletes have read those 2 books. And they're great. And being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they brought me in. They'd heard me speak before, so I jumped in. And I was one of the warm-up bands. So I was a warm-up band. Actually, Stephen Covey was a warm-up band, and so was Hiram Smith. And so what's a warm-up band? We get behind a podium. We have a prepared talk. And we're basically reading off our talks. And then the keynote is Jack Welch, the GE guy. So
got to fire the bottom 10% every year.
There you go. Exactly right. So you know all this stuff. Yeah. So anyway, I love Jack's gig because he's
I read a big biography. I can't remember his title, but yeah, it was
but you'll love this. So I'm in this environment, and I'm a warm-up band, but I'm sitting there with all the other CEOs and middle managers. And so now Jack's on stage, and I'm thinking, this is my dream scenario, because he's in a comfortable chair on stage. Sitting next to him in a comfortable chair on stage is the editor of Fortune magazine or something. And he's just doing a Q&A. And then you're absolutely right. And he's saying things that are shocking like that. I think you should fire the bottom 10% of your workforce every year. And of course, everyone in the room is gasping. Mm-hmm. And now they're all throwing their hands in the air. And of course, all their questions are, oh, no. Jack, I have to tell you that I took this sales manager that was not doing very well. I spent a lot of time with him. And then all of a sudden he became my top sales base. And then Jack wouldn't interrupt, and he'd wait for the person to finish. He'd say, well, if you had taken all that energy and put it into your top producers, your bottom line would be better. Your job isn't to be a sociologist or a humanitarian. Your job is to make sure that widow that has investment in your company is getting that dividend because your bottom line is the best. Yeah. So Jack was great. And listening to the way he answered everything, I was just really, really enjoying it. So that's what I adopted. So that was my line in the sand is that, and then you'll love this. So I think I'm at the Naval Academy. I'm on a leadership panel. Sitting next to me is a U.S. Senator, and I can't remember her name anymore, a Marine general, and someone else. So I'm one of the 4 panelists. And all of a sudden, I'm telling the story of if you're below the 3.0 line, I'm getting you to transfer. And all of a sudden, this very polite Marine general jumps into the conversation and said, well, Coach, I understand what you're doing, but in the Marine Corps, we don't have the opportunity to fire people. We have to change people. And then his answer was absolutely brilliant. And I felt about this high because he was spot on. So he understood that, what I was doing is I was avoiding the responsibility of helping this person become an even better human being. And I was so impressed with that guy.
I will say, I feel like the Marines can also get away with a certain style of coaching you and I can't.
Well, but still, I was so impressed with the guy.
Of course,
and then I'll share this with you because it'll crack you up. And it was so embarrassing for me. So anyway, I'm at the Naval Academy, and all of a sudden in one of the Q&As, I shared with the entire room that my dream as a boy was to go to West Point, and the front 2 rows stood up and gave me a standing ovation. And I learned afterwards that when the Naval Academy has a leadership panel coming in, they invite the cadets over from West Point, and the same thing vice versa. So the front 2 rows were all West Point cadets. Okay. So after the conference, they're all coming up to me saying, Coach, that was so brave for you to say that. And I said, listen, boys, that was a mistake. Yeah. There is no way I am trying to insult my hosts by saying. So anyway, I was so apoplectic.
They're just excited to see their drill sergeant get a little pushback.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
let me one thing that I think certainly in athletics, but absolutely in business, whether it's starting a company or saying, hey, okay, we got a big pitch, I'll lead the pitch, is fear of failure. I mean, it drives so much of what we do as humans across the whole spectrum of life. Was there a consistent process that you use to approach athletes? There's a fear of failure. I'll give you the best example for soccer is, hey coach, I don't want to take the penalty kicks. Even if they have that 60-mile-an-hour boot, because a lot of times for people, kicking the goal is just a relief. Hitting it in. It's like, well, I was supposed to, but if I don't, my teammates are going to be mad. The coach is going to be mad, the parents, the fans. How do you help an individual overcome this fear of failure? I see it every day in business. Why not take that leap? Why not take the chance? Why not go for it? It's like, well, what if I fail? How would you, over your 40 years, what process did you develop for this?
We have a great recent example. Did you watch any of the Euros?
No.
The European Championships, there was a match between Sweden and England.
Where I did 7-8 penalty kicks.
Correct.
And Sweden was up multiple times.
Correct.
And then they choked.
Correct.
I think you had some Tar Heels on the UK team.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. I did watch that. You like that? See? I was like, no. And I was like, wait, hold on. I did watch this. There you go.
But you're spot on. That was the worst penalty kick tournament in the history of European and world and Olympic championships.
I think it went to extra kicks after the 5. There was like 2 out of 5, which is low.
Sweden had 2 out of 7.
Yeah, but yeah.
England had 3 out of 7. Of the 3, 2 of them were former Tar Heels. Because you can train for that.
How do you do that?
The way you train for it is, and I sent this missive into Lotte Wubben-Moy, when seeing how many English players miss their penalty kicks. Lotte Wubben-Moy is one of my favorite former players that also plays for England. She didn't get on the field for England.
Wubben-Roy.
LOTTE-WUBBEN, and then her last name is MOY.
I'm not going to ask you to say that fast 10 times.
No, but she's great. I loved her, smart as can be. Center back for me, along with Alessia Russo as a 9. They were roommates. They were best friends. Lotta played for GB in Tokyo, and then during the Euros.
And she's the UK coach?
No, she is a UK player that comes off the bench as a center back. The UK coach is one of mine too, Serena Vegman. She's a brilliant coach. But anyway, so I'm watching this, and there's a direct correlation between how quickly you take the kick and whether or not you make it. And I am so terrified of penalty kicks. I don't like them. I lobby against them. There are a lot of different ways we can resolve a tie. I think penalty kicks scar you for life, so I don't think it's healthy. But anyway, so
now's the time I tell you.
Yeah.
Played soccer till 9th grade. Last game I ever played, championship game. I'm the 4th shooter. I hit the crossbar. That was it. Last time I ever stepped on a soccer field. In my defense, I just ended up playing football and it all worked out, but it still scars
I love
me.
it. No, it is.
I still wake up in the middle of the night like, oh
well,
gosh.
you're going to completely identify with this because Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest soccer player of all time, missed a penalty kick in the Copa America and quit. He quit. Everyone had to encourage him to start playing. This is the greatest player of all time, misses a penalty kick representing Argentina.
No, it's a very barbaric way to end a soccer
It is barbaric, and it destroys kids. I mean, I just hate it. But anyway, so
how do you train them to overcome the fear?
What you do is this. And actually, if you pull up the only goal in the national championship game this past fall, it was scored by that mesomorph that you like. Her name is Olivia Thomas.
Well, just to be clear, my wife's listening. I don't like her. No, this gal walked by. We were at the camp. This gal, what was her name?
Olivia Thomas.
Olivia Thomas. This lady, she's probably 19 years old, walked by, just jacked, like muscles coming out her back, legs. And I thought she was a track athlete because have you ever seen track athletes? They're just built different. And I later was like, she plays soccer? I was like, oh boy, game's changed.
All right, so she's taking this free kick about 20 yards out. And here's the ritual you have to go through for a penalty kick or a free kick or even a corner kick. If you're about to take the kick, what's critical is in a penalty kick, the referee will blow the whistle, giving you permission to take the kick. So here's what you have to do. The referee will blow the whistle, and you have to stand there for a second and gather yourself and decide what corner you're going to shoot it into, and then visualize that thing going in the corner, and then do this. And then hit it. All the kids for England and Sweden that missed their kicks wanted to get it over with. Whistle shot. They're so nervous they wanted to get it over with. No. The kids that made it, my 2 kids and the other kid that made it, has this elaborate sort of running around, jumping up in the air like a gazelle, and then shooting it. They all waited and then shot it.
That's the key.
So the key thing is not to get it over with. If you shoot it quickly, you're trying to get it over with. Now, is it possible to make it? If you just want to get it over with, yes, because you're only 12 yards out of course it's possible to make it. But the percentages tell us is if you want to assure yourself of having the best chance to make it, you have the referee blow the whistle, you calm yourself, you take a deep breath, and then you finish it after you visualized where it's going to go in the goal.
I was going to say, how do if I ever find myself in a penalty kick situation again, I think I'm going to make it because I will take my time.
Yes.
But in business, and I said, you know what? It's really the visualization. Calm down. Visualize what success looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps in listening to you, that is definitely an approach to help people overcome a fear of failure. Is someone say, hey, I want to start a business, or I want to start a new career. I want to interview for that job, but they kind of psych themselves out. It's like, calm down, take a deep breath, and visualize what success looks like. I want to go back to adversity for a second. I think almost every parent agrees and believes in their heart adversity is good for the kids. I don't think I've ever heard a parent say, you know what, Kyle, I disagree. Adversity is not good for my kid, and I don't want them to experience any of it. Every parent says, yes, adversity, it's good. And in my humble opinion, they really mean it. Yet every parent, myself included, I catch myself doing that. It's like in our nature is to shield our kids from adversity. Um, today's generation of parent, they go to extreme lengths to help their kids through adversity or totally eliminate it altogether. Why do you think that is? How do you balance allowing your kids to face adversity and fail without, that feeling, without what you fear as a parent is your kid gets familiar with the feeling of failing and then thinks they're a failure. Does that make sense?
Yeah. First of all, I love the question, and I'm glad we're discussing it because I think this is really critical for everyone to understand. Sports is phenomenal for what we're talking about right now because it doesn't matter if you fail in youth sports. It doesn't matter. Who the heck cares, in youth sports, whether or not you fail? What's critical is how many times you sort of get back in the saddle, get up if you're knocked down. That's what's critical. And so one of the greatest things about youth sports is failure. And I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to guide you to the Vision of a Champion podcast to listen to Claudio Reyna and Danielle Egan Reyna talk about how they're raising their children. And it's really cool. And the reason I love listening to Danielle talk about how she's coaching her kid, and her kid, by the way, is one of the greatest players in the United States. His name is Gio Reyna. His dad was one of the greatest players for the United States back in the day. Danielle was one of my greatest players back in the day, multiple national champion, also played on the U.S. women's national team. And Danielle is playing for the United States at a U20 youth level. And her coach is this gentleman by the name of Clive Charles. Clive Charles is the longtime coach at the University of Portland, and he's an absolutely fantastic coach. I really liked him. He knocked out one of my teams for a national championship one year at Portland. He did a great job. He had this player up top named Christine Sinclair, one of the greatest players in the game. I love Christine Sinclair. She had an amazing career. I was at her ceremonial final professional game because coincidentally, Megan Klingenberg, another one of my former pros, that was her last game. So everything about Sinclair I've loved, but I also really admire Clive Charles. So he was tabbed as the U20 national youth team coach. He's over in Europe. And Daniel's on his roster, and he played Holland, and we lost to the Dutch. And Clive has a great sense of humor, and this is during the period when we never lost. We were winning national championship after national championship, and Danielle was winning everything. And so Clive couldn't wait to sort of wind her up, and he finds her after the game, and he says, Danielle, what does it feel to finally lose a game? And according to Clive, who's calling me, telling me the story, apparently Danielle looked at him steely-eyed and said, Coach, at the University of North Carolina, we lose every single day. And she was referring to the competitive Cauldron. So she knows what failure looks like because she experienced it every day in practice. And then, of course, it was on the bulletin board to show everyone where she failed in, black and white. So I think what's critical for us is to embrace it and then see how quickly we can bounce back. And boy, does that develop resilience. And so don't protect your kids from failure. Let them fail. Your job is to continue to love them, to let them know that whether or not they fail, you're going to love them forever. And you're going to love them whether or not they're succeeding in this and that, and then help them sort out how to recover from the failure, but not by protecting them from failure.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I framed the question, is parents, part of maybe why they're shielding kids from potential failure is they don't want their kids to become familiar with the feeling of failure to where they start to feel like I am one. But actually, you actually do get familiar with the feeling of failure, but in a much more constructive way, which is I've failed a ton, whether it's at practice or in the championship game. And I know life will go on and I'll, have another opportunity. And that failing, losing, whether it's an individual thing at practice, whether it's a business pursuit, it's not going to be the end of the world. Cause again, for most of us through sports, I've it's your first introduction. It's like, hey, I've failed multiple times, dozens of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times. And yeah, it sucks. But next morning the sun comes up and I get after it again.
No question. I mean, one of the best things when you look at, we were talking politics earlier, Abraham Lincoln just basically kept losing
Yeah, he
almost
just kept
every single
failing, I think,
kept
right?
failing. And what did he end up? One of the greatest presidents of all time.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, failure shouldn't dampen anyone's spirit.
One of my last questions, you've had the opportunity to build relationships with some of the greatest coaches across many sports. You mentioned Dean Smith, Pete Carroll, I'm sure others. What are common practices of the world's best coaches? And what is absolutely imperative for a business leader, a business coach, however you want to describe it, to run a great team or a great company?
Again, getting back to our conversation at lunch today, I was tabbed to teach in my church. And what I love about my church is how well organized they are in helping all of us become successful in whatever calling we're given. And this is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I had a great instructor. His name was Peter Peets. And in the first lesson, I have taken that into every, thing I've done in my life. And he says the most critical thing in teaching, leading, coaching is to love those you teach. Love those you teach. And he's absolutely correct. One of the greatest backhanded compliments I've ever been given by a former player was a player of mine that was playing professionally. And a lot of these kids will call me after 4 or 5 months in the pro league or 2 or 3 years, and they're really upset with their coaches, and they're whining to me about this, that, and the other thing. And I will always protect their coach. I will say, listen, do you want to play for this guy? And they'll say, yes. I says, well, stop whining to me about them. Just figure out what you need to do to get on the field for this guy and understand that, you've got to conform to him. And she said, well, you know what, Anson, when I played for you, I thought I could play for anyone. Basically saying, you were so hard on me. I didn't think there was another coach in the world that I could play for that would be as difficult to play for after listening to you basically nag me about this, nag me about that. I mean, you were all over me every practice. And then she took a breath. She says, but through your criticism, I could feel your love. That's critical. That's critical if you're going to be critical of people, or if you want to genuinely lead them. You've got to love them. They've got to feel it. And you've got to figure out within your own personality of how they are going to feel it. Because my dilemma, and I know it doesn't seem like it on this podcast, but I'm introverted. And I only discovered that 10 or 11 years ago when I was reading a Time magazine cover article about introversion. And they had a 20-question quiz in the article. And I answered 19 like a radical introvert. Questions like, would you rather be at home reading a book or at a party? I'd rather be at home reading a book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so for me, I am not particularly warm. So for a radical introvert that's not warm, I mean, I'm not a Pete Carroll. I don't walk into a
Nobody is.
Well, I know. So I don't walk into a room and feel the embrace of the whole room. I am basically a shark with blood in the water. So how does anyone warm up to me? So I had to figure out a way to express it. And the way I do express it, and this was taught to me by Alex Kimball, is my love language is words of affirmation. So what I am really good at, I am really good in words, in either a text message, an email, or constructed words telling you what I think about you. And so love those you teach.
Love those you teach. Is that something that just has to be naturally present, or can you develop a love for those you teach?
I think you have to. And I think obviously that's a fundamentally Christian principle. And I think for me, that's the ultimate leadership principle.
Yeah. I tell people at the company, especially as they're entering leadership position for the first time, which generally people don't start out that way. And I said, what I've learned, if nothing else, is if you want to be selfish, by serving others, you'll serve yourself. If you say, hey, I want to be successful, if you're just looking at, if you actually give yourself to, if you serve, if you wake up, what can I do and how can I add value to my teammates, whether it's a team of 3 or a team of 300. If effectively everything you do is what can I do to help them be successful in their role as a leader, you'll actually be successful in your role. So I said, one of the principal lessons here in leadership, I said, in order, you have to serve others in order to serve yourself. And so, yeah, I think it's a play, just like you said, you have to learn how to love those you teach. Couldn't agree more.
Let me finish with a Jack
please.
Welch thing, because I really did learn a lot from listening to him speak. He also told me, or everyone in the room, that, when you're firing the bottom 10%, they are going to hate you for the rest of their lives. But you have to have the strength to do them a favor. This is not for you. This is not your environment. And then when you do fire them, you're actually helping them, because maybe they're going to find an environment that they're going to enjoy and basically thrive in. So believe it or not, your very difficult decision to fire them is benefiting them. And are they going to hate you for the rest of their lives? Yes, they will. But in a way, you're serving them in the most positive way.
Most will. Most will hate you forever. Some will, not in the moment, come to thank you. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe one day. And say, hey, you know what? You're right. Jack Welch, GE was not for me. But because you made this decision and I didn't like it at the time, I went and found this other company and better opportunity. And I've gone on to professionally fulfill my wildest dreams. So thank you. I'd be interested to know if he ever had that conversation. But let's talk real quick. I read your book, Vision of a Champion. So for the audience, it's a fantastic book. You do a great job, not just describing, kind of the dynasty and how it came about, but also what you look for in soccer players. Are there any other, your 20 episode podcasts? You mentioned it earlier, and there are a couple, every episode has a different guest, right?
Correct.
So Vision of a Champion podcast. There's a book you gave me last night, which I'm very excited to read. The Man
Watching,
which is a biography about you written by
Tim Carruthers.
Carruthers. Any other?
Yeah, I'll give you the Pete Carroll book.
Yeah,
the Pete Carroll book was Training Soccer Champions. He read that when he was coaching in New England, the Patriots. And I think he took the first 18 pages of that book and turned it into the manual for the New England Patriots and didn't change a word. And the only reason I know this is because a friend of his, Terry Liskevich, a former national team volleyball coach for the United States that he connected with when he was in Southern California, came to do a clinic in Chapel Hill and showed me Pete's manual, that is outline for his manual when he was with the Patriots. So that book is a book that I wrote for coaches. So if you want to coach soccer, that would be an extraordinary book. But that book has ended up all over the place. Coaches in the NBA and the NFL and the NHL. My brother calls me up one day and says, Anson, are you watching the Hurricane? I said, no, Pete, I'm driving somewhere. And he said, well, the Blues coach was interviewed after the game, and they were talking about how his team was relentless and never quit. And they asked him what he did. He says, well, I bought this book written by Anson Dorrance, and Training Soccer Champions. And we use those principles to coach our hockey team with. So basically, that book, I think, has inspired a lot of coaches. And then I heard through a pitching coach for the New York Yankees that the Houston Astros, the year they won the World Championship, and I don't know anything about baseball, so in case they didn't, I apologize. But apparently the year they won, he had everyone in his organization, whoever insisted, read The Man Watching. So they all read The Man Watching. So these books, I think, will have an impact on you. I think The Man Watching now, if you're sensitive, please don't buy it. Please don't give it to your daughter. I swear like a sailor. I'm not proud of that, but I am not vulgar, but I am profane. And please, if you don't know the difference between vulgar and profane, look up the definitions. I am not vulgar, but I am profane. All of my swear words are in The Man Watching. So if you're sensitive, please don't buy the book. Please don't give it to your daughter unless you've read it first. But that book, I promise you, will entertain you.
All right, last question for you. You have an unmatched legacy, not just in women's soccer, 22 national championships, U.S. Women's World Cup, 6, 7-time Coach of the Year, 19 Player of the Year recipients. I think you had a 103-game win streak at one point. I mean, that's across 3-4 seasons, which is wild. But outside of your success on the field, what do you want your legacy to be, or what do you want to be known for?
Honestly, the thing I'm most proud of is I'm loved by my children. There is nothing better than being loved by your children. I have 3 incredible children. Michelle, my eldest, if you Google her, she's stunning. She's an extraordinary rhythm tap dancer, has her own dance company. My middle daughter, Natalie, married a litigating attorney. They live in Greensboro. She has all my grandkids, 3 so far, Finley, Jackson, and Hunter. And my son, Donovan, who I just finished playing pickleball with all weekend. He came back to...
Who won?
No, he's with me. He's my
Okay.
teammate. I'm so decrepit now. I can't play singles anymore. I have to play doubles. But the most important thing for me is to be loved by my kids and my wife. And so for me, that's legacy enough.
Fair. Well, this has been awesome. This has been an awesome time sitting down with you. I can't thank you enough for coming to Nashville. Congratulations on all your success on and off the field. I look forward to seeing you many summer camps in a row if my daughter keeps bugging me to take her out to Chapel Hill. So,
well, if
look
you're
forward to
there,
wearing this
make sure
beautiful
you know.
Carolina
Yeah, you got to
blue.
make sure I'm there because I only show up when Damon wants me because he's missing a day or two. So I will make sure if you're coming in with your daughter that I'm at that
I'll
camp.
shoot you a text.
You got it. Thank you.
This has been great. Thank you.
My pleasure.